What's going on, guys? Welcome on into the Fantasy Tap. Today, you've got me and your boy Brooks coming at you live. Today, we're here to bring you 5 running backs fresh out of the NFL draft, ready to bring some year one impact to your fantasy football teams. And we are just excited for it because the first guy we're going to be talking about is going to be someone that will be Brooks's eye candy, hopefully for the rest of the year. We're going to be going through these guys in the order they were drafted, and then going to be rounding out the episode, giving you guys these guys on our personal rankings and how we would take these guys top 5. So, Brooks, how are you feeling about how the running back class in general was for the draft this year?
Well, after actually digging into a bunch of these guys' seasons last year, the collegiate careers, and what they were able to do, before coming into the NFL, and some of these guys' landing spots also, I'm actually feeling pretty nice about this draft class. Definitely a lot better than I was going into the draft. I really only heard about 2 or 3 guys prior to that. I'm going to admit. But, once I actually, saw some of these guys in their landing spots, like I said before, it was just, I'm feeling actually pretty good about these guys.
All right. So let's talk about the first guy that went off the board. The Jets traded up to grab your man, Breece Hall.
My man.
Your man, Breece
Oh,
Hall.
yeah.
Now, pre-draft, he was the projected first running back off the board by most people's standards. Kenneth Walker started working his way up the theoretical draft boards. But Breece Hall ended up going first, joining Michael Carter and Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman, a name that not many people even want to see on a roster. So what are you expecting? What are you expecting for your man this year?
Well, I'm honestly expecting, it's going to be kind of crazy to say because, it's a Jet player, but, and everybody might be thinking, hey, Brooks, cool your Jets. But
nice pun.
This guy,
Funny.
There we go. This guy's going to come and bring immediate impact to the Jets. We saw what he did last year in Iowa or at Iowa. He had 252 rushing attempts for 1,472 yards. Last year, he had 100 more than that at 1,572. He also had 20 rushing touchdowns. And on top of that, really, really solid rushing production that you saw there. He also had, 302 receiving yards off of 36 catches, 3 touchdowns. So definitely a dual threat type of back to an offense that was ranked 26th in total yards gained last year. The Jets needed a big time playmaker. They got 2 in the draft, but I'm actually more excited about Breece Hall because of the things that he can do in the backfield.
Yeah, and as most of the fans of the show know, me and the other host of the show, Mike, me and him are both Dolphins fans, and definitely puts a little bit of fear into our hearts. This is a guy that's 5'11", 220 pounds. So a giant wrecking ball that's moving at a 4.39 speed coming at you. He is shifty. He's not just a big guy that rolls in one direction and just takes what he can get. But, man, I'm actually a little scared for it. He definitely looks like someone that can possibly be in the Jonathan Taylor run someone over conversation if he gets enough good highlight plays by the end of the season. So ceiling is uncapped for him, but the floor obviously comes with the fact that the Jets did rank 32nd in total rushing attempts last year with only 380 between not only the running backs, but that semi-mobile, not so mobile quarterback you guys got back there. Zach Wilson attributed for 30 of those attempts as well, not to mention Mike White and the other quarterbacks that took some snaps. So I think the biggest problem that you could see for him, especially with adding the talent at the receivers, is the Jets might not be feeding him that much this year. But as a long-term, if you're talking Dynasty, he is going to not only earn his role this year and establish himself, but if his talent pans out, you're talking about someone that's going to be a franchise back for the Jets for the next 3 to 4 years, at least.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And a lot of people are talking about, the fact that the Jets drafted Michael Carter last year. Michael Carter was very, very productive in the Jets backfield. We saw it, when he was out there, he was productive. But at the end of the day, Breece Hall is just a different animal in terms of his ability to run the ball, to catch the ball. Michael Carter is a very, very nice complement piece, but Breece Hall is most likely, actually, I'll be able to confidently say that Breece Hall is going to be owning that backfield in 2022.
I would say I think definitely think by the end of the season you're looking at someone that has more than 50% of the carries for them. That 380 mark and that 32nd in rushing attempts can be a scary number. But if you're getting 150 to 200 carries out of a running back in a season, you're talking about someone that can be putting up 800 to 1,000 yards, no problem. Not to mention carrying 8 to 10 touchdowns. I think he's got huge red zone threat, and I'm really, really excited for him. But let's jump over to the next guy that was taken, and Brees Hall just started a wave of running backs being drafted because not only 3 picks later, we got Kenneth Walker off the board going to Seattle. 5'9", 211 pounds. Again, a guy that's big, not so big, bulky, but is also so quick on his feet, able to run that 4.3, 40. So another guy that's very, very threatening and can be a weapon for that lackluster Seattle offense.
Oh yeah, yeah, and Seattle needs it 100%. I mean, when you look at their backfield, they didn't pick up Rashad Penny's fifth-year option. I mean, Chris Carson is also like very banged up. I mean, there are some people.
It's possible we never see him play again.
Exactly, and that's a rumor going around there. But I mean, when we look at Kenneth Walker, I mean, he fits the mold for what the Seahawks want to do. They want a quick guy who's going to be able to be a wrecking ball type of running back. They want to get back to that run first type of scheme. They don't have Russell Wilson, so they can't really rely on it from him anymore to kind of like move the chains with his legs. But I feel like that just opens the door for Kenneth Walker to take that role and run with it. I mean, he had a 1,636 rushing yard season last year. Pretty good. And that's after 2 underwhelming seasons that he spent at Wake Forest. He actually transferred to Michigan State last year and absolutely commanded the backfield with 6.8 yards per carry also. So he's definitely a fantastic guy, fantastic prospect.
Yeah, and something that a lot of people are giving him a lot of flack for coming into this is the fact that he only had 13 receptions in his season at Michigan State this year. And on that, though, he was semi-productive, 89 yards, just about that 7-yard mark. But the problem with people overanalyzing the amount of passing attempts and the pass catching ability for the running back and a lot of NCAA teams is at that point, they're only catching as many balls as the coaches are asking them to. They're not a lot of the teams, unless you have someone that's just an exceptional pass catcher at the running back position, you're not scheming guys like Kenneth Walker to be open in the pass play. He's your safety valve there. He's the underneath route. He's the one that's the safety valve. You saw guys like Jonathan Taylor even this year, who saw, I think it was only 18 passes his entire collegiate career, seemed to be doing pretty well as a pass catching back, had some really great games this season. So I think that the fact that Kenneth Walker is going to be coming into a role that you're walking right into, possibly no Chris Carson and Rashad Penny, who's been a shell of himself, not to mention injured every single season since being drafted in the first round years ago. So I think he's got one of the clearest paths to play this season and likely to get some of the most carries out of this entire group.
Yeah, for sure. And like we said before, the Seahawks do need it. Drew Lock is over there. I mean, at the current moment, he's a projected starter. They do have weapons on the field, but they're going to need a really good safety valve, like you were saying, in Kenneth Walker, for 100%. So next on the list, I mean, we're looking at the number 3 guy that we're going to name off here, and that will be James Cook from Buffalo. John, how do you feel about this prospect here?
I was very, very in love with the idea of drafting James Cook in fantasy. As soon as he was drafted to Buffalo, Mike has sold me very heavily on the fact, and I still agree to it, that Buffalo's a solid running back away from being a Super Bowl team every year, as long as that defense and offense can hold up. Now, what better than getting someone with the pedigree of Dalvin Cook, who even on draft night, Dalvin Cook's right there next to him. So they train together, they work out together. James Cook was getting tips throughout college from his brother, trained by it's going to be something that is going to be a very great thing for the Bills. Another team I hate to see succeed, but it is what it is. Now, he obviously didn't put up the 1,500 yard season because he was splitting time with another running back, Zamir White, who possibly is on this list. But even though in the limited carries, he was getting just under 6.5 yards per carry, That's 2 rushes for a first down. He alone could have ran the entire offense while also getting 7 touchdowns on that. Now, I think that he's going to be a very unique and versatile back, having the pass catching ability, having the ability to run through people and run through people's faces while running around them. So I love it. My biggest problem for him, and maybe this will change because they have a better running back now, is that though the Buffalo Bills ranked 13th in rushing attempts last year, that was 461 attempts, Josh Allen made up 113 of those. That's 25% of the rushing attempts for that offense last season. Take away his rushes, and they were dead last. So definitely something that we're going to want to make sure we keep an eye on is how he's being used in that offense. He's going to be in that offense with Devin Singletary, with Zach Moss, and definitely going to be there with a little bit of competition until he earns that role outright.
Oh yeah, for sure. And looking at a guy like James Cook, like we said, I mean, definitely an explosive runner. Definitely, has the namesake of his brother, at least on paper. I mean, he had a very productive season at Georgia, splitting time with Zamir White. He still had 113 carries and 728 yards on the ground, while Zamir White is actually also taking a sizable role. We may be getting to that later. But what really stands out to me is the same thing that we saw in Breece Hall. Something that you alluded to. He's a good pass catcher. 27 catches, 284 yards for 4 touchdowns. That would be, pretty productive in terms of a running back. Clearly. If you could take that to the NFL level, I mean, the Bills are even more dangerous than they are right now. And
Absolutely.
it's not hard to imagine a world also with Devin Singletary and Zach Moss over there that have had so many opportunities to take this backfield to the next level. It's not unreasonable to think that James Cook can step into this backfield and at least command half of the carries in this backfield.
Agreed. Absolutely. If not completely push them out and start getting closer to that 60 to 70% timeshare.
Oh yeah.
So someone to definitely consider drafting. Watch where he goes if you guys are doing your rookie drafts. One person that I am very excited for this year that is falling in a rookie draft that I am in currently, Damien Pierce from the University of Florida, drafted to Houston, possibly one of the worst running back groups pre-draft in the NFL. Another guy, 216 pounds, 5'10", not the quickest. I will say that right now. He is not the quickest, but if you watch his film, he never gets caught from behind. You go watch his highlight tape, you watch a lot of his game film, he doesn't get caught from behind. He gets caught because he's running out to the outside. He's an outside runner. He doesn't do a lot of shifty work through the inside zone, but as soon as he breaks out, he got 2 or 3 cut moves, and this man's breaking it. His longest run of his senior season was 29 yards, and a majority of those runs came out of a gun package where you see him just running, again, wide open, receivers wide open, and you got him just running just outside of the tackle, breaking it to the corner to the pylon, and just barely making it in the end zone. Wasn't asked to make these big runs on the 60-yard line. Or I'm sorry, the 40-yard line, 60-plus yards. This guy's going to be used in a very unique way, and it fits perfectly into Houston's offensive scheme where they're not going to be a 3-play touchdown team. It's going to be a long drive, just move the ball consistently, freely, and be consecutively great. I think Damien Pierce is going to be a stud this season.
Sorry, it's not. No. I mean, it's definitely a prospect worth ranting about. I mean, excuse me. Like you said, he's not the quickest guy, but he can definitely be productive in the Houston backfield that features Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead currently at the top of the depth chart. I mean, just like a few teams on this list, this offense was bad in terms of total offensive yards gained. In fact, they were 32nd out of a possible 32. So, I mean, we're looking at a team that needs to, improve offensively. This guy could be that kind of guy that at least contributes to that both on the ground and through the air.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see it through his game film too. He's not a he's a scripted run player. He runs that streak route through the middle, coming out of the backfield and ends up just being forgotten by the linebackers, the safeties, and being wide open in the center of the field and breaks that for a deep 35, 60-yard play. On his senior season, he did have 216 yards and 3 touchdowns. Those 3 touchdowns came from the same exact play, like I just mentioned, and gun open. He's in the backfield, runs the streak route right behind, in between the tackle and the guard, and is sitting right in the center of the field where the linebackers are everywhere else, wide open, and then just burns everyone. There was the 68-yarder, like I said, barely was beating the safeties, had 40 yards to go, and burned every single one of them. So he's not the fastest in the short speed, but once he gets open field, man, this guy's not getting caught. I'm really excited for him. My biggest problem is it's Houston. They're drafting early again next year. They've got a talented class coming in. And depending on what they do with their draft capital, they could be taking a lot of moves. Obviously, if Davis Mills isn't the answer, they're going to be going for a quarterback. But if they needed to, and Damian Pierce isn't that guy or isn't as amazing, easily could grab a stud running back coming into the class next year.
Oh, yeah. And something we didn't actually talk about with Damian Pierce is that, his offensive yards. I mean, the receiving yards are very, very impressive. He only had 574 rushing yards, but that was also because he was in the 3-way timeshare at Florida. Yeah. One of those running backs ended up getting hurt. But I mean, like those running backs over there, besides Damian Pierce, had at least 76 attempts and 326 yards for both of them on the year. So I mean, we're looking at a Florida Gators team that like to run multiple backs, and this was one of them.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to our last guy. We've got someone that I think is just more of a long-term risk that is more than likely going to pay off in the end. It's going to be Zamir White. And the reason for me being confident in the fact that I think you guys should be drafting him is the fact that he's going over to the Las Vegas Raiders. Fits a similar draft profile to Josh Jacobs, where Josh Jacobs hasn't finished a season since being drafted fully healthy, has played more than 8 games without seeing some sort of injury designation either before the game or after the game leading into the next week. So the longevity of Josh Jacobs in Las Vegas is more than likely not going to be there. I do believe that Zamir White was possibly drafted in the 4th round, about halfway through the 4th round, to be a replacement option if it works out. And I obviously, coming from Georgia after the season that they just had, this man can ball. 160 attempts, 856 yards, and 11 touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry average. And like we mentioned earlier, that's splitting time with James Cook. This man is going to be a stud and more than likely going to outwork Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs and earn a role by the end of the season. So by next year, not 2022 may not be the best one, but I think by 2023, we see someone who you can lock in as a running back too for fantasy football.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome take. I'd have to agree. I mean, like we said, with really everybody on this list, I mean, these are some top-notch prospects. This is a guy who split the backfield with, James Cook, who we're very, very, very excited for. And, at the same time, put up a very, very impressive resume on the ground. The only red flag is that James Cook took most of the receiving yards. He only had, Zamir White only had 9 catches for 75 yards, didn't have a touchdown. But, at the same time, the hype is all here because Zamir White is actually just a couple injuries away from seeing immediate fantasy relevancy.
Absolutely.
And the running backs that we see on the Raiders are very, very injury prone. We've actually, for most of these guys, attributed injuries just as a back thought when you think of these guys, Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs. I mean, at this point in their careers. Yeah. So, I mean, on an ascending offense that just acquired Devontae Adams, they just locked up Derek Carr. I mean, this team seems to, know what they want to do. Seems like Zamir White is in their future plans, especially because of the injury history. I can't stress that enough with the injury history of the 2 backs already in this backfield.
Yeah. All right, guys. So that's going to be 5 running backs that you guys are definitely going to want to be considering when you guys do your rookie drafts coming up. We think they're going to have incredible year 1 impact. Now, Brooks, who is your running backs 1 through 5?
My running backs 1 through 5 have got to be Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, James Cook, Zamir White, and Damian Pierce. I'm going to say that Zamir White is a little bit of a shock to be jumping Damian Pierce, but I'm going to give a hot take. I'm really worried about the durability of the Raiders' backfield. What about you, John? How are you looking at this top five?
All right. So if I had to give him to you, I'm going to be going Kenneth Walker. Then I'm going to shoot down to Brees Hall. And I'm probably going to give James Cook a try. But give me Zamir White. And I am making sure I'm not leaving my drafts without him unless someone snipes me. I am the most confident for. I think that he's the best value pick. And then I think Damien Pierce is probably someone that's going to have a very usable year one, maybe a usable year two. But I'm worried about his long-term value with the Texans, so I'm not super hot on making sure I take him in my draft. But the top three guys are definitely going to be impactful for your at least a period to come. Zamir White's going to be the sleeper that everyone right now is just trying to avoid. And like you said, it's that Raiders backfield health and the fact that this guy is going to be a stud. He's a monster. He's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time player there.
Yeah. But all right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to be on the lookout for any other videos that you see come up. Make sure to hit that bell icon, subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and let us know down below which running backs you guys are the most excited for coming into this season. It doesn't have to be one of the big names. It could be someone that maybe we're not talking about. Maybe Isaiah Spiller.
Maybe. I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens in that Chargers backfield. Isaiah Spiller probably, could have made this list. It's just, his landing spot wasn't the best. So year one impacts, you don't really know what to expect year one from Isaiah Spiller. But, with a few injuries here and there, definitely a player to watch for.
Absolutely. So thank you guys. Make sure to tune in next time, and we'll see you around.